probably a lot.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome to the Today in AZ After Show. And normally it's kind of like a fun, lighthearted topic show, but today we had such great responses from you guys sending in your live questions about coronavirus. We decided to extend it into this format.
Yeah, and we're joined by Dr. Frank Lavecchio from Valleywise here, an ER doctor, and we appreciate you being here because, quite frankly, I'm just going to be honest, a lot of people ask us questions, and I didn't go to medical school.
Right.
Like, I'm not qualified to answer these questions. As you know, I've seen a lot of times on network news and stuff like that, and people want to provide their opinions. This, in my opinion, isn't the time or the subject for that.
Right.
That's why you're here. You do have a medical degree. You're the person that we want to ask these questions to.
Absolutely. And also we're trying to just get facts out there, not
Right.
fear. And so we're trying to get the best information we can. We know that there were a lot of developments that happened yesterday for sure when it came to coronavirus, the World Health Organization labeling it as a pandemic, a global
Right.
pandemic. A lot of countries, states, businesses taking all these added measures to try to keep people safe. And we want to keep you safe. So you continue to send in your questions. You can put them live on Facebook right now and we can answer them. And you've been texting us all throughout the morning at 602-444-1212. All right, so
that's how this is going to
Yeah.
work. By the way, I'm just logging on here, and send us your questions right here in the comment section below. Just write your questions, how you feel about it, and we in real time will, if we can answer them,
Yeah.
and keep them to medical, of course,
Yes.
please, because that's the expertise that Dr. Lavecchio brings to us. So let's get right into it.
Yeah,
We're all
let's
good to
jump
go.
right in.
Okay, so Brian chimes in and says, "What symptom would I get first?"
You know, Brian, that's a great question. I think the most likely symptoms is you're going to get nothing. You might just feel a fever, and if you do get a fever, that suggests more symptomatology. Think about lower respiratory tract, which would be like a cough or shortness of breath. Most people have minimal to no symptoms. They feel like a little bit of junk, maybe a little extra tired. Not even necessarily a runny nose. Interestingly enough, most people with coronavirus don't have a runny nose. And coronavirus is the same class as the common cold. And you guys who have the common cold, a lot of times get the runny nose. So I think feeling weak, tired, you know, maybe that might be an early symptom. A lot of people are probably asymptomatic. We're always worried that when testing is universally available, that the number of cases is going to skyrocket. Doesn't mean, you know, that, you know, the world is coming to an end. It just means that we're testing more. You know, a lot of diseases we check for, like the flu, a lot of people may have had the flu and thought they just felt a little weak and tired that way. People react differently. So the early symptom that we worry about the most is probably fever and lower respiratory stuff.
Okay. Go ahead. No.
Let's talk about when one of the biggest concerns, of course, we keep saying is the elderly, which is 70 and over.
Right.
Some may have underlying conditions, but some of those underlying conditions are diabetes, heart disease, things that are fairly common. In our area in particular, we have a lot of folks who fall into the category of living well and living healthy. What do you recommend to them? Should they be going to the gym? Should they be still getting their workouts in and being out in public? Or should they be trying to stay at home because they are in that older category?
I think the hardest thing for some people is to stay at home. You know, some people enjoy that.
Sure.
But for some, it's very, very difficult. And I think for now, you should try to avoid, you know, big crowds, all of that contact. If you go to the gym, it's a good idea to wipe off your equipment before and after. And you should be doing that before this virus hit the outbreak or not. If you look at older people in general and you look at death rates, it seems like over 80, higher percentage of death rates, at least what we're getting from China, set over 70, still high. It definitely tails off though, you know, in the very, very young. We don't see many deaths under 40. You know, could be comforting. We don't see many illnesses. You know, most children under 5 just seem to have a mild illness, if anything. So
Is that surprising to you that it's kind of sparing the younger generation at this point?
if I was on here talking about the flu and you said who's most vulnerable, I would say, look, the very old and the very young, under 2. We had a death in Arizona of a young child. I don't even think it made the news, from the flu. So the extremes of age in the flu or influenza are important. And so this is kind of interesting. You can take the children a couple different ways. Many children are probably carrying the virus. They're probably carrying it and I could get it from them. So I'm the grandparent, I get it, I'm 80 years old and I can get sicker. But it's also comforting to know that more likely than not, your child's probably not going to be the first one to get really, really sick from it.
And that's something to mention too, because if your child does have some symptoms per se, whether you think it's just flu-like or something else, would it be good at this point in this moment of abundant caution to keep them away from grandma, grandpa, because we do know that the elderly are far more affected by this?
I think if you ask me a question, if the child may have it and goes to see their grandparents and the grandparents don't have it, who's more likely to get sick and get hospitalized? It would be the grandparent. So you have to use precautions. The kids should wash hands before and after, wipe down the surfaces before and after. If the kid feels anything, a little cough, cold, fever, you should use more precautions. It's tough for little kids to wear a mask. I get that. Yeah. But you wear a mask. I wear a mask if I have it to protect me from giving it to you. If you wear a mask, it's really not that helpful.
Yeah. One of the questions that we were asking this morning to our viewers is, what are your thoughts on the hoarding that's going on right now? The run on hand sanitizer and toilet paper and water and things like that. Personally, first of all, are you hoarding?
No, I'm not hoarding. I'd
like to ask the doctor first. What are you guys doing?
I probably hoard too much stuff in my garage, but none of this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think, obviously people want control. They want control of what's happening in their environment. That's one way for them to get control. I think we'll probably be okay, right? You don't have to hoard toilet paper. I don't get it. I don't think you're gonna, GI illness is not a common component of this. Okay. Not many people get diarrhea or nausea or vomiting.
So that wouldn't be the reason that someone would be buying up all the toilet paper. It doesn't have a practical function towards COVID-19 and the symptoms.
No, and I see the use of like Purell. If I was offered a bar of soap or a product like Purell, I would probably take the bar of soap. Definitely works better. I would also say it makes sense to get your medication.
Sure.
If you have diabetes or whatever you have and you need medication, it's probably good to have a month's supply around. But that's good practice all the time.
Absolutely. Well, let's see some of the questions that are coming in live now. I know we had some from earlier today. How about this one that was texted into us? Of all the viruses, epidemics, and pandemics that we've gone through in the past, how many years, why is this one so bad? It requires shutting down the world, addressing all the cancellations. Yesterday, there were a slew of them that came through.
And maybe he or she is referring to like the H1N1 that we had
swine flu
12, 13 years ago at this point. And it doesn't feel like we had as many cancellations and things shutting down when that went down as we do now.
It's unprecedented.
Right. It is. It's a couple different reasons for that. One is the transmission rate of this, or transmissibility, we say. So if I had measles and I was in a room with 10 people who didn't have measles and weren't vaccinated, 9 of you would probably get it. And this is much, much lower, but still relatively high. It's much higher than the flu, more likely to get it if you're around somebody. When you're around somebody with this, if you're in the proximity within 6 feet or so for 5 minutes, we like to think that you could get it. So a good thing would be maybe stay away if you could stay away, or limit your contact. If they cough on you, unfortunately, all bets are off and you can get the exposure. The other thing I'll say is that the world is a different place, right? I don't think the internet was around when H1N1. Well, it probably was, but not as
younger.
robust. Yeah, younger.
Twitter was only about a year old or so, I think,
Wow.
when H1N1 came around, and now look at it.
And then, the other thing is travel. It's not uncommon for us to travel a lot more. I think it's much more easy. People from different cultures come around all the time. So I think it's real. Some of the stuff is, hyped up from doctors maybe, or the news media, et cetera. Some people are extreme. I think there's a nice middle spot. You should be concerned. There's so many viruses that people die from. If you asked me a year ago, could I have taken care of somebody who had coronavirus? Yeah, maybe. I didn't know. I saw them. Maybe they got put on a respirator. They got really sick. They stayed in the intensive care unit. And we said, we don't know what's wrong with your mother, but she survived. We gave her antibiotics, but no bacteria grew out. We checked for a couple of viruses, but the handful that we could check for, nothing grew out. I mean, that's like a dime a dozen in medicine all the time. This one is a little more exciting because people are driving pretty quickly and the death rate is pretty high.
Yeah.
The death rate of this is about, we think, 2%. And in my home country of Italy, it's closer to like 4 or 5%,
Right.
which is alarming. The flu, think of the flu is about 0.1 or 0.2%.
Right.
So depending on how you spin it, you could
Right.
say this is 20 times more lethal than the flu. Or in Italy, it's 40 times more lethal than the flu. But more people get the flu, right?
Right.
And this year, probably, the estimate is maybe close to 1 billion people worldwide get the flu.
Yeah,
So 1 or 2% or 0.1% of 1 billion is a lot of people going down.
sure is. Yeah.
And I want to get on that subject as well too, because we get this question all the time. Why don't you talk more about the flu? Why do you have all this coverage about the coronavirus, but you don't talk about all the numbers of the people getting the flu? And these seem like valid questions. I mean, the numbers for the flu way higher than the numbers for the coronavirus. But is it more about the percentage of people that are falling very ill and possibly dying from the coronavirus? Is that what separates this from the flu? Why is this more of a concern in your opinion, or is it more of a concern?
So I think, I'll talk till you're blue in the face about the flu. Every year I'll come in and tell you that you need to get a flu vaccine, you need to practice good hand hygiene, you need to practice cough hygiene and cough etiquette. Okay, and that should be every year. I think maybe it's getting less press than the flu because the flu's been around, right? And it's probably going to be around for the rest of our lives, more likely than not. The reason why this is so exciting for us in the community to learn about, not necessarily exciting if you get it, but interesting, is this is a brand new virus, a brand new class. And we look at its brothers, and the similar ones, the SARS, for example, a couple of years ago. That death rate was like 10%, same class. We look at the common cold, which is also in this class of about a handful of viruses. You don't really die from the common cold. It's very, very rare. So we're excited about that. Well, we're interested about that. Excited might be the wrong word here. I think we're still worried about the flu. You should still get the flu vaccine, et cetera. But the flu, we have a vaccine. We have some drugs that can kind of help offset it. I have a test that I could do. I stick a swab in your nose and I'll have the answer in an hour in most emergency departments or urgent cares. This, it might take a day or two. And in a day or two, you are worried that you have coronavirus. And then if I tell you have it, you're going to say, my God, I talked to the guy at the gas station, my kids. You feel like you spread it a lot more. So pretty scary stuff in that respect.
Let's put up another viewer question and see what else we have coming in. This one is from Rick in Phoenix. He says, my COVID question is, how long does a person carry or transmit the virus after they've recovered?
A little bit of a moving target there, but we like to think about 12 days or so. We think
after the symptoms go away?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And where does that come from? It comes from like testing some people that have had it. If you want to be safe, just 2 weeks, a good round number. It is kind of scary. I think some people asked before, how long does it last on surfaces? Because I've been telling you guys to wipe things down. And I think, that is truly fascinating. On plastic, plastic, which you think is just so benign, and stainless steel, which you think went holding up to 3 days on that. So cardboard, a day. So somebody could hand you a book, if our viewers remember what a book is. I think the copper is very interesting. For some reason, copper only holds it for like 4 hours.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Now we're going to see a run, and people are going to start hoarding copper armor.
Get our copper
stuff like
pots.
that. Yeah.
Right. That is
and copper
interesting.
cars and stuff like that.
I hadn't heard that. Do you believe that, and this is your life, this is your career, you're talking about medical stuff all the time. When you leave the ER and you see the amount of coverage this is getting, you see how many people are talking about this, do you have the same level of concern? Is it warranted? Is all of the attention warranted from your perspective? Is this as big a deal as people seem to be making it?
I think I like the coverage in the sense that I like when people say, wash your hands. Believe it or not, we should be doing that all the time. Not just with the coronavirus or not. You should, if you're coughing, you should protect yourself. And then you say, it's getting a lot of media coverage. There's other diseases that are worse, but it's good to educate people. It's a tough question to answer. Is it an adequate amount? I think, you could argue we only have, less than 10 cases in Arizona. That's because we don't have widely used testing,
Sure.
right? When the tests get released, I think you're going to see a lot more people have it or carry it and have minimal symptoms. So is it warranted is a tough question. What do you guys think? You think it's warranted? I mean, from the newscaster's point of view?
You want to take this first?
Yes. So I think that at this point, because we've been covering it as it has been progressing with more details coming in, obviously in China and Italy and these countries essentially being shut down. When you're talking about cities of tens of millions of people being shut down in China, that's a news story. It's a huge economic impact to us here in the United States because we rely so heavily on Chinese goods. So, for instance, and now yesterday, that's when Ryan and I were talking just off air, it got real yesterday for a lot of people. Those breaking news updates of canceling huge events across the board, these are the things that you start thinking, okay, what is the trickle-down effect of these cancellations? And it's really, now it's pervasive in our quality of life here.
Yeah.
And that's news.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. It's a change in your day-to-day. Now it's affecting people's day-to-day ability to get around. I went to the store yesterday with my kids. I'm not able to get a bottled water. There's just more day-to-day things. And so I think our responsibility, as we talk about here a lot on 12 News, though, is just trying to separate that fact from the fear and the hype that's out there.
Right. I would say that I think, and I have two kind of answers to this. I think we probably, I'm guessing here at 12 News, it's probably about 50% of our show has been the coronavirus over the last couple days. I think that's warranted because of what it's doing to all aspects of our lives, our money, our health. It is affecting all of those things, whether or not schools are going to be open, whether or not events are going to be happening. So I think 50% of the coverage makes sense. Now, what is different about the coronavirus right now than about the H1N1 is 24-hour network news.
Right.
And so 50% of 24-hour network news is 12 hours a day of coverage. Whereas back then, 50% would be like, okay, maybe we got an hour a day. And so I think the folks at home are saying, hey, you guys are covering this for 12 hours a day. That's ridiculous. And I think that the news cycle is different than it ever has been before. And that's fair. Like I do understand that. 12 hours a day is probably going to be stoking a little bit of fear. But I just think that that's the news cycle that the viewers have been craving in the last few years, and that's why these networks get the ratings that they're getting. I just think that as members of the media, we need to be, in some cases, more responsible in the things that we're saying. When a question comes in and we're asked a medical question, I don't want to answer it.
You're gonna leave it to the experts.
That's why I'm happy you're here, because I don't think I'm warranted to say anything on it. I can tell you what we're told by the CDC, and I can tell you, what it means when Governor Doug Ducey puts out a state of emergency, but I can't tell you why. That's not up to me. And so as a consumer of news, it's very important in this day and age that you realize that like, who are you getting your information from? If it's not a doctor, you're getting it from the wrong person. In my opinion.
Well, thank you for that. I'm passionate about my work and this sort of stuff, infectious diseases and emergency medicine and public health. I think it's gotten real for a lot of people in the sense that I try to think to myself, can you think of one group of people where it's not impacting? You look around the room, half the stuff in here is from China. There's a couple of people checking the stock market right now. I have a young child who I tell her about coronavirus. I'm on the news talking about it. Coachella got canceled. Now it got real for her.
Right.
Yep.
I have a friend text me, my God, my New York Yankees aren't going to play. So, it got real, or I shouldn't say they're not going to play, but it might be limited as to what can happen there.
Where it might be,
or with
can they be there
no
for
fans.
it?
Right? NBA,
Yeah.
look at the NBA. What would you do? Think about the NCAAs. You played your whole career for that. One day you're a senior, you're playing in the big dance.
It's
and then
tragic,
canceled.
almost. It is. I understand that.
It really is. What would you... because we get asked this all the time. Vanessa was just asking this. If you had travel plans, because it's spring break.
Right.
For a large part of people, ASU, U of A, college students are on spring break right now. Our school is getting ready to go on spring break. I know a lot of folks in Scottsdale have it next week. What do you say when folks have travel plans and they're trying to figure out whether or not to cancel?
Well, obviously it's an individual answer for everyone. I put my plans on hold with my young daughter. And the reason why, mainly for me, is the quarantine. You know, I think if I got sick, I would be okay based upon my age and my relative health. And what I mean by that is I probably wouldn't be hospitalized. I would probably, you know, have to stay away from other people, etc. However, if I got quarantined for like 2 weeks, you know, I'm not getting paid. I got to make up those hours, make up those shifts. You know, I got to ask for hundreds of favors. So I think it's an individual decision. Realize that, you know, on the plane, people are recommending, you know, maybe some extreme things. Walking on a plane, wiping things down before and after. I mean, think of those surfaces. We already know
Yeah.
3 days. I think if you're going to travel to areas where there's high, you know, virus patients and stuff like that, you should probably not.
Yeah.
You know, not going to Europe. I mean, maybe that's a little extreme, but you know, there's a lot of interaction between Europe. A lot of people from Italy maybe have traveled to other places.
Right.
And my family's originally from Italy, and I'm in contact with my relatives there. I mean, they can't get groceries.
Yeah.
You know, and the shelves are bare. And if you do, you know, those things to an Italian. You can't interact with other people, and
You can't tell an
get
Italian
food.
to stay a meter apart. That's tough. You guys
It's
talk
tough.
with your hands.
Yeah.
Right.
You might as well kill them. They're not happy about that and the lack of food.
Well, Dr. Frank, thank you so much for being here. I know we're out of time. We could sit and talk with you all day.
Yeah, I do want
A
to,
million
and
questions.
real quick though, just for our viewers to have something to leave here with. If you had someone come in, they knew somebody who is presumptive positive, or they have the symptoms, talk to our viewers. What would you tell them about quelling the fear and what to do and maybe not to panic?
Okay, so let's play the game. You came into the emergency department or urgent care and you said, look, I think I have coronavirus. And I say, why? Well, did you travel to one of these places? And you know, the places where there's the epidemic is changing. You know, some of them are in the United States, for example. I'd say, look, how long have you had symptoms? What do you have, et cetera? And we have pretty clear indications of who to even test or not. Now with the test being commercially available, you could say, well, it's okay, I'm gonna pay. And obviously they're gonna probably charge a premium to get paid. But I would say you're young, you're healthy, the chance of you getting very sick are very low.
So don't panic.
Don't panic. I would also say there's not much treatment for it except what we call supportive care. If you're vomiting, we might give you drugs for vomiting. If you have a fever, we might give you drugs for a fever. There's no magic drug that I have. The simple things still occur. You know, try not to give it to other people, wash your hands. For now, probably try to avoid crowds. You know.
All right, Dr. Frank Lavecchio.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jazz hands.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Those are some great questions that we had coming in today, and we appreciate you being here to
Thank
answer
you
them
so
for us.
much.
Thank you.
All right, well, we know that you guys have plenty of questions, so keep rolling them in, and we'll see how many more we can get responded to. But this has been very enlightening, and we hope that you all can figure out a way to go about your day, go about your life. He said, don't panic.
Stay healthy.
Stay healthy.